People think that waiting is the safest option, but sometimes it's the most expensive choice they can make. Today we're going to talk about, should you wait to lease, should you wait to sell, and some of the different things to consider going through that, right? That's
Correct.
a good thing to look at. You cover the leasing side. When do people at what point do they go, I should wait? Is it a seasonal thing? Is it a life thing? What is it?
On the leasing side, we typically have people that they're get a job transfer, so they're waiting for that, or they're renovating the house and they want to finish that. As far as I'm concerned, the quicker we can get it on the market, the quicker we can get you income coming in. So we try to take the keys as quick as we can, try to get them out of the picture so that we can take over and
do your job.
Do what we need to do.
You guys really do a really white glove service, essentially. Yes. Which a lot of times I don't think a lot of people feel that way when they're working with a property management company.
They can basically just move out and we'll clean the house. We paint the walls, clean the carpet. We bring in our vendor team to get it in make ready condition. So they don't have to do that before they move. We can do that for them.
Which is a lot of that brain stress and emotional stress that someone
absolutely.
has. So if you wait to try to do all that on your own, a lot of times they end up talking themselves out of it, and then it becomes more costly because maybe they missed a really good market to lease in, or it just the vacancies are really low maybe everywhere else, and so they're trying to fill as many as we can.
Right. 6 months ago to a year ago, we couldn't. As soon as we listed a property, we had it leased out that week. Okay. Now you got more.
Well, you're in the spring market, right?
Delay time. So it's taking longer to rent properties right now. So it's kind of a trend. It's a yearly trend that way.
Yes. It's funny for us, a lot of times we'll have sellers that say they want to wait for spring market. And we've had several sellers that we've been talking to since October, December of last year. We always give like a preliminary number we think their house would sell for in the current market. And then we always let them know the market go up or it can go down. Yep. We can't control it. And we can only keep an eye on it. And we've had several seller conversations even in January, but February, April, March, that they lost tens of thousands of dollars in market value because the market has not gotten better.
Sure.
It's continuing to decline or flatten out, and the comps keep selling lower and lower because we're in a balanced buyer's market right now.
They're behind the trend.
They're way behind the trend. And so we have to either get them ahead of it, which means cutting it even more than they like, or we're taking offers even lower because we might get multiples, but doesn't mean we're getting multiples at list price or over list price. So that has been a very costly mistake for sellers who waited. They could have set the trend in the fall or the winter, and instead they're following the trend, which is going lower.
As far as vacancy rates for us, say for an example, you got a $2,400 house. For each month that you don't sell, you're looking at an annual return on investment. You're losing $200 a month. So if you factor in that $200, I lower it $200 ahead of time.
Yep.
Now I can make up for it for the rest of the year. So because you don't want to hold out for the highest price in the market because you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're not putting the bottom line is you want money into the bank.
Right. And it's really tough because we'll see sellers that still want to keep the price that we told them that only lasted for 30 days the first time from the winter and apply it to spring. And they'd be so overpriced, they would never sell and just be continuing to have their own carrying costs as well. So the emotional cost of waiting can be very, very high because there's a lot of stress, the uncertainty, the unknown. A lot of times they're waiting on other things to happen, or they can't do anything else until that happens. And so a lot of times we try to make the process as simple as possible so that when we do get keys, just like you, that we can move on with it and do all the things. Market reality, do you see as big of a flux in the market like we do, or is it usually just like a couple $50 to $100?
It's $50 to $100, and it's more based on the competition.
Yes.
Because 1 month you might add 5 properties in a neighborhood.
Fair.
And then all of a sudden your price just dropped $100 because you got so many more houses. But if you're a house with one house and you're within a 1 mile radius, then you can pretty much call your shot on the price. But
Mhm.
the ones that have 10 houses in a neighborhood listed, you're in trouble.
I mean, that makes sense.
Or
It's
not trouble,
but,
but
yeah, you gotta be more competitive.
price-wise,
Yes, you
yes.
have to be more competitive price-wise. And then it's that thought, like, so you think the sellers we've been talking to since December, now it's May, and it's been 6 months. So they've had 6 months of mortgage payments, 6 months of
Yep.
utilities, 6 months, like, all of that has eaten into their bottom dollar too. And then on top of it, we haven't been able to get the same price because the market doesn't support it. And a lot of times they think it's us, and I'm just a messenger of the market,
The
and
numbers don't lie.
they don't
You
lie.
run the market comps, and you're not gonna get anything out of it
Yes.
besides this is your price. You gotta use that as your
The baseline, essentially.
baseline. Yeah,
Yes. And that's what we tell them. We say, we're meeting with you today. This is your baseline price. And then based on when you go active, we'll compare to it. But I can't guarantee it's going to be a higher number, especially when we know we've been in a recession market for real estate for several years. We don't know where the bottom is on it. It could be a shallow bottom, but as we can tell right now, rates are still not changing the way people thought
right,
they would. They've been pretty steady in the sixes, but it's not enough to make them move. And so what happens is prices have to reflect that because buyers can't afford anything. So they can't anticipate sellers
right,
keeping these sky high prices with
right,
rates that don't align with it. So the prices have to adjust.
right.
And most sellers have pretty good equity. I think over 50% of them have more than 50% of equity in their homes right now.
A
It's
lot of ours do. Yeah,
yes, or they own them outright. So it's the sellers that have purchased in the last 2 to 3 years. Those are the only ones that are
those are the
struggling.
ones that are trouble for us, and that's the hard thing to get over.
Yes,
The market doesn't care what your mortgage rate is.
correct.
The market price is the market price. So that's one of the big things is we got to talk them through the entire cycle of it's not just cash flow bringing in your mortgage is this and I'm getting you this much rent. Your house is appreciating.
Yep.
You get the the deductions for your
Yes.
taxes. There's a lot of other factors that factor into
The
whether it's a
value
good deal
again.
or not.
Yes, 100%. It's not just, and I always have the conversation too. It's like, do you want to lose $50,000 on closing day because you're upside down in your house? Or do you want to maybe lose $200 a month every month for the next 12 months because you're renting it out and at least covering the bulk of your mortgage, and then you
Right.
can write off those losses.
Right.
So talk to your CPA. We're not CPAs, but like that's generally the conversation, unless they can't afford and they really need to get out of that house and they don't want to rent it all. Sure, but it's good to have the conversation about it. When life hits hard, late payments, medical bills, job loss, or even the need to move quickly, many homeowners feel trapped. The fastest way out seems to be selling to a cash investor, but that means giving your home away for pennies on the dollar. You don't have to do that. Nearly half of homeowners today are equity rich, and that value belongs to you. With our One Move program, you can unlock that equity immediately, get cash in hand now, and still share in the upside when your home resells. Or, if you'd rather, we'll shop your property to multiple cash buyers so you can choose the best offer instead of settling for one low bid. Go to DunnDealOffers.com and discover the smarter way to get cash fast without losing the equity you've worked so hard to build.
To those who take the risk, who bet their life savings, their blood, sweat, and tears on a rental property to make a nice place for someone to live and a nice living for themselves. To those who get this call or no call at all. To those who keep adding more properties, it will all be worth it for you and for them. You care about preserving your investments. So do we. Real Property Management.
most sellers don't want to set the precedent on my end. They don't want to be the first one to market in spring market. They want to see what everybody else does before they hit the market. And there's so much power in going to market first sometimes, because you do get to set the precedent, especially if you price it right and enough people come. Because the opportunity we have when appraisal shows up, we get to show the appraiser, look, we had all these different offers. These were the prices they came at. We'd like you to appraise at this
Right.
amount. There's no other comps to compare it to, so we can at least show you our activity and what we've done. And that's a service we provide to all of our sellers to make sure that we hit appraisal. Because that's usually the only
we don't
fear.
have to deal with
Yeah,
that.
you don't have to deal with any sort of appraisal. If they pay you, they pay you.
Right. I basically look at the past 6 months
Mm-hmm.
and do comps in that area, and that gives us a good indication of where we need to be.
So talk to me a little bit more about waiting for the perfect tenant to show up. Is there such a thing?
You got to be careful with the fair housing
Yes.
rules and regulations and everything, because you could have a qualified candidate, but they could flip it on you and say, oh, it's a racial issue.
Yep.
And all that kind of stuff. So you got to watch out for that. We try to do our background checks without looking at the IDs to know who
Right.
they are.
Right.
I mean, you can get an indication from the names, but we try to be as fair as we can.
Yes.
We present it to the owner, give them the good and the bad that we come up with on the background checks. We actually call the owner or call the employers. We
Yes.
call the previous landlords to do those background checks. So that's what we bring to the table to make sure we're getting a good tenant. Now, when you're weighing multiple applicants at once, that's throwing everything on a spreadsheet and say, okay, which one's better?
Mm-hmm.
Those are easy to do, but the ones where you get the one applicant and it's one family and they're kind of borderline on their credit or whatever,
Right.
their income to rent ratio, those are the ones you gotta kind of flip a coin on.
So would you say that a lot of your landlords will maybe pass on an applicant waiting for the next one to come along?
If they don't feel comfortable with this is a strong candidate, then they'll have us pass on them.
Okay. And I mean, that's their choice to do that as long as they have a specified tenant criteria.
They know that
Yes.
they're
be fair.
they're holding a vacancy.
Right.
It's staying vacant, and they're getting rid of a tenant that wants their house.
Mhm.
But there's so many evictions and squatters and all that we have to deal with that people get nervous.
They do. And I think it's better to have a separate third party like yourself to mitigate that and go through.
Take the emotions out of the
Yes.
mix.
And they keep the tenant, you have tenant criteria to run through. And so it's an unbiased
Right.
third party that's just looking at the straight facts of numbers, because those numbers don't lie either.
Right. Right.
And then that way they're being removed from making those sort of decisions.
We make it pretty cut and dry that this is your checklist or your qualifications.
Mhm.
And we'll still have people, like if you're under a 500 credit score, we're automatic denial.
Mhm.
They'll still apply. And
And you
they're
gotta check
hoping
that.
they're hoping that you're not going to check that.
Mhm.
So we're weeding out those people for sure. They're gone.
Right.
But we do our due diligence.
Yes. So are you seeing any sort of like deferred leasing where people will wait for a whole season of vacancy to get a different season involved? Or I've seen actually where they'll do an extended lease so that when they release it bumps them into spring market. Like they'll do like a 16-month or something.
It's more of a on the releasing.
Okay.
If we can buy an extra 6 months at a fixed rate, but we're getting into the
better
selling
market.
or the better rental season, we'll do that. But,
Okay.
most of the time it's just re-up for another year.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice because it's less turnover.
I would say we probably have 85-90%
We'll release.
re-sign.
Which is a huge bonus to a landlord because they're not having to worry about the turnover costs.
You're not flipping a new tenant,
Yep.
new make-ready costs. You have more marketing fees you got to pay me to find the next tenant.
Right.
So you're going to say by re-signing a tenant, you're probably looking at $2,000.
Yeah. So almost a
savings.
whole month's rent potentially of savings.
Yep.
Which is really, really good because that helps that bottom line, especially if maybe you had to take a little bit lower rent in the beginning and you didn't anticipate, things
Yep.
like that.
we get it on,
Yeah, you're quick.
get it going, get it as soon as possible, and get it on the market and get somebody in it. So that's
We're about the same.
That's different.
Well,
a little bit for
we
y'all.
can do it quick if we need to. We don't love to do it quickly because there's nothing worse than a seller feeling overwhelmed through the whole process of having to get all the things. So we like to give at least, 3 to 4 weeks to make ready, get all your documents together and get it on the market. Unfortunately, a lot of times sellers will put off their homework until the week of, and then it's just a mad dash to get all the documents. So if your realtor is reaching out for documents like a survey or seller's disclosure, like we need those because we got to put them up. And it's to protect them because if you don't have your seller's disclosure up front, then as soon as the buyer does receive it after contract, they have time to review it and get out of contract, which you just don't need to give them more reasons or more opportunities to cancel a contract.
Yeah, when we do our contracts, we try to have the owner sign everything up front when they do their agreement with us, even before we list the property, so that once we do that, we're not waiting on them for anything. Yep. Because
a lot of times they're not in town, right?
It does happen where they're in Hawaii for a week or on a cruise where you can't talk to them. So we do have periodically, you'll have, if you give them too much time, I found another house. I'd rather do that house. Yep. And you lose them because you're waiting on the owner.
No, that's fair because I would say when we experience on the leasing side representing tenants to get into rentals, we usually tell them you can get into a rental in 3 to 4 days potentially if you're really like strapped and need to find a place. But I've seen it last, 1 to 2 weeks sometimes too because it's just so disorganized and it's hard to get in touch with just the leasing agent. So I love that you guys have a really great system for that because it's very important.
The quickest we moved in, probably the quickest I listed a property like midnight one night. And the next morning we had a showing at like 8 o'clock. They put in an application by 9 o'clock. We did the background check and everything aligned just right. And they were excellent tenants and we moved them in 2 days.
Wow.
So that's the quickest we've done.
That's pretty quick.
But that is rare.
That's always quick.
That is rare.
Well, I think that kind of covers the hidden costs. I don't think these are really necessarily hidden. I think they're just costs that people don't want to acknowledge exist.
They know they're there, but they're trying to avoid them. It feels
icky. Yeah, it feels icky. They don't love it. But if they would just talk to us, we could help them so much more.
That's why you hire us.
Yes. Well, I think that's a wrap for today. We'll see you on the next episode.